come on. Hello everyone, this is Jackie M, and today I am doing, I think it's the 7th in my series of Ramadan themed broadcasts, and Ramadan because we're in the month of Ramadan, which is the Muslim fasting month. And my particular theme, if you've missed all my previous broadcasts, this time around with Ramadan, I'm going around all the different states of Malaysia. And today we are on Johor, which is the southernmost state bordering Singapore. And really, my main association with Johor has been just recently when I was over there to film. Well, we happened to be filming something on location over there. And I tried some of the food, and what really struck me was how, everywhere we went, they really love their food over there. And you don't really, when you think of Malaysia, certainly those who've been to Malaysia or are planning to go, you hear a lot about Penang, you hear maybe a bit about Ipoh, certainly KL, and Langkawi and that sort of thing, but you don't really think of Johor, certainly not up until this point in time anyway. But Johor really, to Malaysians and to Singaporeans across the border, sorry, I'm waving my scissors around here, really it's kind of like a local insiders food haven. Really, it's known for a number of different dishes, and really when I was over there, I didn't really try anything I think that was uniquely Johorian. It's just by virtue of the fact that we were filming and on the road, but really everything that I tried was just really nice. So what I'm going to do tonight though, and it's nighttime here in Sydney, Australia, in my brand spanking new studio, also known as my stepmom's backyard. Now, what I'm going to do here is something that is a signature dish of Johor, which is Laksa Johor, Johor Laksa. And when I was over in KL just a couple of weeks ago, I went through this Ramadan bazaar, which is basically kind of like a dusk market. You think about night markets, but this is more dusk. It's kind of like to coincide with the fast breaking time in Malaysia. What they do is they have stalls set up like a normal market atmosphere, and people would be selling tons and tons of food, and all the Muslims who are fasting would come through late in the day, not quite nighttime yet, so they can just buy up a ton of food that they can have to break their fast with. So I saw Laksa Johor over there, and subsequent to that, just looking through some images online, it's really quite interesting. I've told a few people about this, how it is nothing like what you would imagine. Laksa, people always think your stock standard laksa should be with coconut milky, kind of like a kind of like a curry, really, with noodles and tofu and that sort of stuff. Now, Laksa Johor does not have tofu in it. And of course, as soon as I say that, someone's going to say, well, there was this stall over in, around the corner from where I live, but really the stock standard one does not have tofu in it. But what it does have is fish, okay, a fish-based stock. Now, the other thing about it is I mentioned to a few people that it's like nothing you would imagine laksa to be. Really, if you Google Laksa Johor online, the pictures that come up, really you see, I think, to me, they look like spaghetti bolognese. And that's the other interesting thing about it as well, is the fact that you use actual Italian spaghetti as the noodle for this particular dish, which I find really intriguing. I didn't have that when I was over in Malaysia, but because I don't have any spaghetti around, I'm going to use some normal egg noodles, so we're just going to pretend it's spaghetti, okay? Now, what I've done ahead of time is I've bought some mackerel and poached it in some water, just enough water to cover it, okay, for about 20 minutes. And I'm just going to go through what we're going to do. I need to flake this, just basically break it up quickly, without the bones, obviously. And then what I'm going to do is cook up the spice paste for it. And I'm going to use a simplified recipe for the spice paste. Essentially, it will consist of things like galangal, coriander, fennel, cumin, turmeric, a bit of ginger, and lemongrass, and that sort of stuff as well. But as a shortcut, I'm just going to use a packet fish curry powder, which contains a lot of the ingredients in there. Now, that's the thing about curry powders as well. You need to keep that in mind, that with a lot of Malaysian cooking, we do use a lot of shortcuts, okay? Now, curry powders are really just a combination of spices that usually would be different variations of like coriander, cumin, fennel, turmeric, and that sort of stuff anyway. So using something like that's in a packet really essentially cuts down your list of ingredients by probably about 60%, okay? So this does not have galangal in it, so I've got some galangal powder, okay? I use powdered forms of a lot of my, ground forms is generally the more, I think, elevated way of describing them, but really they're kind of like powdered galangal. Okay, I've got powdered ginger here. You can use fresh ones of all these ingredients if you want. If you like to go hunting down fresh galangal and fresh ginger and whatever and that sort of stuff. Because I run a business, generally, because I cook them in large commercial quantities, I don't have time, I don't have the resources to be hunting down all these fresh ingredients that can be also seasonal and can be very expensive and take time to process, really, okay? So, and I've got powdered lemongrass over here. So I'm just gonna combine all these ingredients and mix them into a paste with a bit of water. And then I'm going to pan fry it. And then I'm going to add the flake fish. And this is a nice little twist. I've actually picked up some crab. This is kind of like shredded crab meat, okay, in a frozen pan. I'll show you in a minute. But I'm just gonna add that in because with different variations of this recipe, sometimes they put prawns in it as well, and they actually mince the prawns in the mixture as well. And also you can use dried prawns. I don't have any lying around, so I'm going to leave the dried prawns. The other thing we're going to put in is belacan, which is my trusty old shrimp paste, okay? And again, I'm using a powdered form of that, but you can use fresh shrimp, block shrimp paste, and then just cut it into slices and then use it that way. Now, this thing I don't show you guys very much, but this is tamarind slices, okay? They're just dried tamarind slices. You should be able to find them in most Asian grocery stores. Hopefully. I had trouble. It's quite funny, I'll tell you in a little bit. But the other thing we're using are some fresh herbs, okay? And the noodles I'm using here are these here. Like I said, we're just going to pretend it's spaghetti, okay? It looks fairly similar to the spaghetti in its appearance anyway. I've got cucumber here, I'm going to shred it, okay? And I've got some herbs here. These are laksa leaves, and these are basil, okay? And some bean sprouts as well. So what we're going to do is first we're going to pan fry saute the spice paste, and then we're going to add the flake fish, and we're going to add the crab, and then we're going to add some coconut cream. Okay, this is a very rich gravy, and we're going to add some stock from what I used to poach the fish with. Okay, and because it's hot, and because I mentioned this particular broadcast was actually delayed because I had problems with my stove. If you watched my broadcast from a couple of nights ago, I had problems with the stove actually just not doing its job, sort of thing. So I've basically gone into overdrive and gotten this high pressure one, but I've only got the one of it. So we're going to use this to pan fry that and cook the stock. But then I don't have another stove to, in the meantime, kind of like get things moving along. So I'm just going to use the stock because it's still hot. I'm just going to reheat it and use it to blanch the noodles with at the end. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. But let me just get some gloves. There we go. Okay. So what I always show you guys is how to handle in terms of handling powdered spices and curry powders and that sort of stuff. Just stick them all together, okay? Oh yeah, the other ingredient that goes into this dish is very, very rich and very, very creamy. So I've got the coconut cream here, preferably fresh, but obviously, I mean, who's got time to get fresh coconut cream over here? Certainly in Malaysia, you have the luxury of being able to pick them up at the store, but over here, not so much. This is a curry stick, okay? This is creamed coconut. It's different to coconut cream. It's creamed coconut. It's essentially, if you can imagine, basically the way you extract coconut, and you would know this if you have watched my other broadcast about coconut. I did a series on the basic Asian ingredients once. But to extract coconut, basically you would get the flesh, you would shred the flesh, and then you would add water to it, and then you squeeze it out. But creamed coconut is different. You actually, basically, if you can imagine, just shredding the flesh to the point where it's just completely creamed up, and then you pan fry it till it's brown, okay, and aromatic. But you can actually buy this now. Well, soon in Australia, but you can buy it all over in Malaysia. This is called karisik, okay? That's creamed coconut oil. Actually, they call it coconut butter. That's the other term they use for it as well. So let's just get started. Got a couple of tablespoons of the fish curry powder, and don't worry about quantities and ingredients for the moment because I'm going to either list them up on the screen over here like I did with my last broadcast, or I'm going to actually rather than or I'm going to post it on my blog as well at some point. Bit of galangal. Okay, so remember the fish curry powder already has turmeric and it already has coriander and there's a bit of ginger. And it's already got fennel and what else? Did I mention coriander? Okay, that sort of stuff, so you don't need to put them in. I'm just going to put a bit of a chili here as well. Okay, there's this ground chili. It's going to give it a bit of a kick. And I have got lemongrass. I'm just making a small portion because I don't, I've got a lot of fish actually. But nobody's going to eat this except me. I've still got that beef noodles from the other day that I've been trying to get through. And it's just taking up room in the fridge. So, and if I look a little bit like messy, that's because I have just rushed from my day event, which is a market over at Concord that I run every Thursday. So I'm actually still covered in grease and whatever. It's just as well you can't see it or smell it. Okay, so I've got this mixed up. I'm going to add some garlic. Do I have garlic? Oh, here we go. I've got some fresh garlic over here. So first off, I'm just heating this up. This is, like I said, a high pressure burner. I've got it on low because it's really brilliant for stir fries, really. Okay, I've shown this to you guys a long time ago now. Got that going. Just going to turn it down. It's going to start to spit. This is fresh minced garlic. If you don't have fresh, just use dried, just I sometimes do. And just reconstitute it by adding a bit of water to it as well. Okay, this is, again, one of my other cheats. And you'd know it if you've been following me. This is actually just commercial shallots. This isn't even fried. This is dried, which in theory should even be better. Okay, because it means it's been less processed, I think. Okay, so I'm just mixing it in with the paste. And I'm adding this to the oil. So as usual, I'm using my carotene oil because I think it just gives it a really, really nice color. Apart from the fact that it's healthy for you. The colors from all the carotenes in the oil. So just pan frying this. Get this out of the way. I am so disorganized. Huh. Hope you can see this. And this really only takes like a minute or two to pan fry. Just want to bring out the flavors. And I'm just adding the belacan, shrimp paste. Okay, hopefully you can see it. The fish actually is quite strong smelling. A bit more lemongrass, I think. So you can see I don't measure anything. Just goes to show. Malaysian cooking, you can really be quite creative and adapt everything to taste, to availability of ingredients and that sort of stuff, and it will generally still turn out pretty good. Adding a bit more oil to this. So we've got that, and I'm just going to add some water, some of the stock from that I used to poach the fish with. Now remember what I said about how this dish really looks like spaghetti bolognese? That's because it's quite a dry dish. It's not like what you would imagine laksa to look like. It's very rich and very creamy, but they call it the gravy, but it looks to me like a really thick paste, really. Okay, so got that in there. And I'm just going to throw in some of the flaked fish. Just be careful with the bones, but it's very, very easy to. It just basically just falls apart in here. It's a very, very beautiful fish, actually. And I've seen people actually, as a shortcut, I've seen a recipe online where they just use canned tuna. You can do that as well if you want. I don't buy a lot of canned fish myself. I mean, fresh fish is, I've just got a fish shop just up the road from where I am, so it's just readily available. But, if you want to keep things simple, just keep some canned tuna in your cupboard, and that should work as well. And the tamarind slices, I'm just going to throw them in. Tamarind is sour. It gives that, if you don't have that, just add some lemon juice in it. And usually, in fact, with this particular dish, what they do is squirt some limes over the noodles before serving as well. Okay. Now, some people say that this dish actually is, of all the different types of laksa, if you know what Penang Laksa is, of all the different types of laksa, this probably is closest to it, but only by virtue of the fact that it uses fish and the fact that it's a little bit sour. Okay. Penang Laksa doesn't actually use any coconut milk at all. So if you're one of those people who have a fixed notion of what laksa looks like, you're going to have to, if you go to a Malaysian restaurant, order a laksa and it's nothing like what you imagine. It could very well be that it's just because the owner or the cook originates from a particular part of Malaysia where your stock standard laksa is not as well known as their local variety. And I've had that happen actually here in Sydney, Australia. There's one of the owners of a Malaysian restaurant over here is actually from Sarawak. If you know anything about laksa, you know Laksa Sarawak is actually quite different. So her laksa that she has on her menu is actually a Sarawak influenced version, completely different. And someone wrote a bad review about her laksa that it was nothing like what laksa you would imagine to taste. And the reality of the fact is just because she comes from a different part of Malaysia, where the laksa is quite different to what you would expect. Okay, the most popular, I guess, the most famous type of laksa really is what we call curry laksa. Okay, the one that you would find at most restaurants is really curry laksa, and that particular version, again, has lots of different slants to it as well. So this is just simmering. I want this to simmer for about 10 minutes. And the other thing I need to add, I'm forgetting something, the karisik, okay, the coconut butter. I'm just going to cut this open. This is very, very rich. This is something that you would usually actually add to rendang. Okay, I don't, just because, I couldn't get hold of this back in the day when I first developed my rendang recipe. And I've basically done without it. But it just gives your curries an extra layer of richness and creaminess, okay? So this is simmering away. Now I've got my noodles and I'm going to chop up the laksa leaves, okay? Laksa leaves, different, depending on where you're located. Over here in Sydney, they're actually referred to as, I just realized I can't find my knife. They're referred to as Vietnamese mint, okay? Okay, no knife, so I'm going to snip them. You can just shred them, of course. And with laksa leaves, with some recipes, certainly the one I actually did at the Grand Hyatt in Kuala Lumpur a couple of weeks ago when I was over there, their particular laksa, curry laksa recipe uses laksa leaves, but they actually poach the laksa leaves with their curry, with their laksa soup itself. So that's an interesting take on it. I usually actually just snip them into bits like this and sprinkle them over my laksa. But like I say, there are just so many different variations to Malaysian dishes of the same name that you just have to be a little bit, I guess, open-minded about the ones that you come across, okay? So I'm just snipping these. And the other thing I want, the cucumber. And I want to just shred this. Let me see if I can find something here. Well, you know how to shred cucumber anyway, so I'm going to do that off air after this, because I'm so tired of running out of shot and then having to edit it out of my video. Okay, so now seasoning ingredients. You want a bit of sugar and salt. I'm not putting salt in because I'm using chicken stock granules, and you can do that as well if you want. You know I like my chicken stock granules. So doing that, and also if you can get a hold of ikan bilis granules, you can use that as well. Okay, don't forget, like I said, usually with this particular recipe, or I wouldn't say usually, but there are versions of this recipe where they actually put in dried shrimp as well, but I haven't here. Okay, this is extremely, extremely rich and flavorsome. Just gonna put this aside because I need the stove. And I'm gonna heat up the rest of the stock. And in the meantime, you can serve this dish on kind of like a plate almost, really, because it's quite dry, like I said. Putting more of this laksa leaves in. Now, when you're poaching noodles, they only need to go in for seconds. Obviously, everyone should know, I would imagine, how to cook spaghetti noodles. So do that. And then just serve it up. Now, apparently, I haven't seen this, but apparently, because this is quite a dry dish, what they do traditionally is eat this with your hand, okay? And to make it easier to handle, they actually knot the noodles into little parcels. So you just kind of like pick it up with your hand and eat it, okay? So just blanch the noodles just for seconds. I'm blanching it a little bit longer because the water isn't at boiling point. Take it out. I've got some bean sprouts. I'm just going to blanch them quickly as well. Okay. And then you just ladle this over it. This is so incredibly, incredibly rich, and it smells great as well. Sprinkle the herbs over it. I'm going to take a photo of it. I'm going to shred some cucumber off it, take a photo of it, and show you what it looks like. There you go, Laksa Johor. As you can see, how long did it take me? What, 20 minutes? Very, very easy. Obviously, I had to poach the fish ahead of time because I only did it not because you needed to poach it a long time, but I did it because I needed to let it cool down after the fact and then shred it, okay? And it was going to be too hot for me to handle on air. So there you go, Laksa Johor, the quick and easy way. And I will catch you later on this week for my next installment, which is going to be on Penang. Everybody loves Penang, and so you'll have to catch me to find out what I'm going to do there. And selamat makan.